Are you the artist who hasn't painted since college? Or the author who never seems to finish the manuscript? Maybe you're the entrepreneur who let another year slip by without launching their startup. Or you're the singer who can't bear the thought of stepping out of the rehearsal room and onto the stage. If you're 40, 50, 60, even 70 years old and you're thinking, man, this sounds an awful lot like me, then you're in luck because I've created this podcast just for you. On this show, we're going to help creative types and entrepreneurs to kickstart the dreams they let go of many years ago when they got married, started a family, and embarked on their careers, better known as their JOBs. We're going to deconstruct that negative feedback loop that's been fueling your fear, uncertainty, and doubt for decades. And finally, we're going to give you, the caller, and the listeners actionable takeaways, things that you can do right now to help put you on the track to living the lives you were born to live. At this point, the question we should be asking is, if not now, when? My name is Doug Taylor, and this is the Third Quarter Gut Check. On this show, our goal is to help those that are 40, 50, 60, even 70 years old to get unstuck and get on the right track to living the lives they were born to live. Whether you're starting a band, doing humanitarian work, launching a startup, or, in the case of our next guest, inventing a new sport. Steve Strangio is a writer and producer. He's also the inventor of Zoneball. Zoneball's been featured on ESPN2, was also part of the Moxie Games, which were held at the RIO Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, my old stomping ground. He's also the host of the podcast Steve's Trivia, which can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug. Awesome intro. I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Steve. You know why? Because I'm so fired up. Vegas, RIO Hotel Casino, Moxie Games, ESPN2, a brand new sport being introduced to the world. I mean, Steve, man, this is the American dream. I mean, it really
the American
is.
Dream that I've been after this for a while now. There's a long backstory, but I'm sure we have time to get into that.
Well, you know what? Like most dreams and anything really worth pursuing, it does sometimes take a long while to get to where we are. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen overnight. You always hear about the 20-year overnight success story.
Yep. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be that Morgan Freeman, the guy who was like, yeah, overnight success. And it was a long road. It was a long road. But I enjoyed every step of it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, I just recently heard something that Rodney Dangerfield apparently was very bitter that he didn't really, quote unquote, make it until he was much older, like in his late 50s. And apparently he was very bitter about that. And I would think, man, I don't care what age it comes, as long as it comes. You know, I don't know.
I actually played the stage of Dangerfield's when I was back in my stand-up comedy days when I was much younger. I was actually on stage when I was like 17, 18 years old. And I heard the story of Rodney. I mean, he was, Jack Roy originally.
Yes, yeah.
Became a character. He had to do a paradigm shift when it came to how he was approaching the audience. I guess for a long time he wanted to be that one person, and the audience was kind of telling him, no, we like you as this person, and I think he listened, and that was paramount to him getting to where he was. Yeah,
absolutely. So do you know that to be true, that he was apparently bitter that it took him so long to make it?
I didn't actually know him personally. I think I only met him once. At his place. Didn't really, I only know his conjecture. I mean, when you hang around with a bunch of comedians, you hear stories.
Yeah.
So nothing that I can actually, fact check.
Yeah, exactly. Well, apparently it was the wife had actually, his ex-wife or the widow had said that, about a year ago. I don't know. I read it somewhere about maybe 6 months or a year ago. So look, you come up with a new idea for a sport while you're in your late 20s. It sits on the shelf for 2.5 decades. A lot of listeners can relate to this, right? They have an idea, and I think it was Thomas Edison that said it, an idea or vision without execution is a hallucination. So at what point, did you finally say, I'm done. I'm doing this. I don't need anyone's permission. I'm going there. I'm doing this.
This thing was born, Zoneball, the sport that I invented, was born out of a inline skating sport that I first invented back in the early 90s. I was I was living with my cousin and his wife in a small apartment based in their house. I was actually unemployed at the time, and I loved to watch ESPN2. I was a really, really big fan of it. And I just kept watching and watching and watching. And like, I grew up, I'm the only child of an all-star soccer player. So I used to watch my father, after the game, dissect the sport of soccer little by little. And it helped me create this analytical mind when it came to sports. And it just became a thing where I was like, all right, so I played soccer when I was a kid. I was proud, to be Tony Strangio's only child who would play soccer. But soccer was a brand new sport back then, And I thought to myself, well, what if I just invented my own sport? So I had that dream ever since I was like a grade school kid, playing on the streets in Oceanside, Long Island. So I thought to myself, all right, I have this idea. Inline skating is really big right now. What can I do? How can I make this interesting? What kind of game can I create? And I kept thinking, I did a research study of all of the sports that are out there, how the sports were invented, the history of basketball and football and baseball and where they came from. And then I kind of broke it down into strategy versus rules and checks and balances and what makes a game interesting. And since I also came from the world of like improvisational acting and so on and so forth, when you do improvisational acting, you're not really making it up as you go along. You're working within a structure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I looked at the sport and I'm thinking, a sport is very much an improvisational story told in physicality through a structure. And I broke that down. I thought, well, instead of having the goal...
you were how old at that point?
I'd say I was about 22, 23, around there.
Okay. And when the idea first came to you, you said you were in grade school. I mean, did you have entrepreneurial instincts at that age, from an early age?
At that age, yeah. I was even like, we were inventing sports on the street. We always came up with new ideas. I was the first kid to play kickball at age 8. In my group.
Right.
And I recently went back to my old
those
house.
were the good old days, Steve, right? I mean, where you were out after school and you didn't come back in until it was dark, and that was it. Nowadays, every kid comes home from school. It's sad. They come home from school and they're on their iPhone or their iPad.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There is, people are starting to get up and out now, but for a long period of time, nobody was doing anything. And I grew up in a world where it was like, yeah, you came home, and then in my block, we had two places you could play. The Point, which was like at the point of our block, or the back street. And that was obviously behind in a shaded area, in a back street area. So we got to play. We got to do things. And I just kept saying, what if we played this? And what if we played that? And then we just kept inventing stuff. And that's pretty much where it began, like on the streets of Oceanside, Long Island. And it fostered until a little later in my life.
Man, so at what point did you take it to and say, listen, I'm going to make this, from the time that you were in your 20s until the time that you got later on in life, when this thing actually was born, when the prototype was made, you had to certainly, execute on the idea. At which point did you begin executing on the idea in earnest and say, you know what, no more, I'm not going to let it sit on the shelf. I'm actually going to build the prototype. I'm going to bring it to market. When did you do that?
So it starts with Roller Clash, which became Roller Zone, which became Zoneball. So Roller Clash, i.e. Roller Zone, was the first time that I actually went to a skating organization in Long Island and said, listen, I have this idea for a sport. There's a barrel in the center. It's a center goal, and you have to skate around, and you have to shoot the ball into the goal. At the time, I didn't even know how to skate. I'll be honest with you. I knew how to roller skate. I couldn't inline skate.
Right.
But I learned. I went out there and I kept learning. I was actually dating a speed skater at the time, so she taught me. So while we were playing that game, it went around for a while. I literally got a letter of intent from ESPN2. The guy who invented the X Games sent me a letter of intent. Said, get this sport up and running, and we'll broadcast it on a worldwide basis. Well, unfortunately, it never happened. We did play a bunch of games, but then inline skating kind of went by the wayside. And here I had this brand new sport. I didn't know what to do with it. So I kind of took a step back, and I went back into reinvention mode. And I kept inventing new sports. I kept inventing all these just doing more research and finding out what worked.
So hold on, let me back up, Steve. Let me back up for a second. So at what age were you when you got that call from ESPN?
Well, let's see, early 1990s, so around my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, around my 30s.
So you're not a kid?
And I'm not a kid at this time, no.
Yeah. No, but still,
really.
look, there's a lot of people in their 30s that are still making a lot of mistakes. They're not actually willing to get out in front of it like you are at this point. So go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, you have to make mistakes. Everybody, in our society, everybody thinks that a mistake is a failure.
Right.
A mistake or failure is more of a transition to something that's going to lead you to where you're going to be successful.
Without question. Yeah, but you know what, Steve? Is that something that we realize now as we get into our 50s? Is that wisdom talking? I mean, because I think I see a lot of the younger kids, man, especially the millennials, they make a mistake and they're like hemophiliacs. They bleed to death right on the spot. They can't handle it.
Well, because today's society is all about I want it now.
Yeah, yeah.
I put up a YouTube video. Why doesn't it have 1 million hits?
Right,
Well,
exactly.
Because you have to work for that. You have to get it out there. You have to do it.
That's exactly
Don't
right.
be afraid to fail. That's one of my main, mantras in life.
Tenets, yeah, absolutely.
How many times have every successful person I've ever heard has failed upward?
Absolutely. And I love that concept of failing upwards, failing forward. Sometimes I tell people I fail great. It's a part of the entrepreneur's journey if you're willing to take it. So let's go to Vegas, my old stomping ground. I read that in your bio and I said, wait a second, wait. I love this. I mean, this is classic textbook Trench University stuff right here. You literally call Jason Garfield and you get this guy on the phone, and in a nutshell, and you'll tell the story, but in a nutshell, he basically says, no, you got no team, you got no league, but hey, if you want to show up, we'll give it a shot.
Right.
Is that essentially how it happened?
Yeah, that's with the Zoneball goal. You would ask me, like, where did I get that prototype for the Zoneball goal?
Yeah.
Roller Zone led to Zoneball. Me building the prototype of the Zoneball goal in my garage at my house in Oceanside with my father,
okay,
who was the all-star soccer player.
Yeah.
So I had this goal, okay, and then I did a demo at a local college, and they said, well, we're going to buy it. I said, well, I'm not selling it. I'm trying to sell the league. He goes, no, you should manufacture this. So then they sent me to a company called NASCO, and then the goal has been sold very successfully, Zoneball goal, for over 6 years now. So I have this goal, but I don't have a league.
Okay.
Games are being played.
Yeah.
Games are actually being played in the UK right now and soon to be in Africa. I'll tell you more about that later. But I have this thing, and I'm working at a place as a promotions manager. It's an entertainment complex in Paramus called Humdingers. And I'm watching television, and I see on ESPN2, they're doing a day-long takeover of, they're calling it ESPN 8, the Ocho, from the movie Dodgeball.
Okay, yeah.
It's long been a dream of mine to be on ESPN 8, the Ocho. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, I'm going there. I don't care how I do it. I'm going there. I'm going to make this happen. And I called up Jason. Exactly. That's how the phone call went. Actually, it started off with an email. I said, I have this sport. And he was like, great. Well, you want to bring your league here? I said, I don't have a league. Said, okay. How about 2 traveling teams? I don't have traveling teams. So he goes, okay. So we get on the phone. And he goes, well, what do you want to do, Steve? I'm like, Jason, I want to get on a plane. I want to come to Vegas. And then I want to ship the Zoneball goal and have it meet me there. And I want to show up, and I want to be a demonstration game. I want to be a demonstration sport.
I love it, man. I love it. You know what?
And he's like,
I love it.
And we did it, and I showed up, and I was there for 3 days by myself in Vegas at the RIO, and I'm a big fan of, like, the 70s Rat Pack and the 50s, 60s, 70s Rat Pack group, and just the whole feeling. It was my very first time in Las Vegas.
Oh, really? Wow. I spent a number of years there from 2000 through 2005.
Oh, well, definitely going to go back. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to leave the RIO because I was so focused on Zoneball.
Yeah.
My wife and I are going to go back for a vacation soon. But
yeah, you want to stay 3.5 days, not 4 or 5 years. Yeah, that's definitely not a place to live. That's definitely a place to visit.
Oh, my God. So we're there, and like I said to Jason, all right, well, we have to get some players, and we're surrounded by all these other amazing sports that are brand new. So I went around to every sport. Jason helped me, went around to every sport, and we got a team together. And we did like this, the official Zoneball championships. So it came down to me basically just saying, using my visualization, saying, I want to go there.
Yeah.
I want to make this happen.
Yep.
I'll figure it out as I go.
And Steve, look, I think it's that spirit, and we're going to go into your mindset in a minute here, because I think that's a lot of what our listeners are after, What do I have to do? What do I have to do next? And I think oftentimes it's the easy thing right in front of their face, just pick up the phone. And a lot of these people that seem so unavailable or so busy or so pressed for time really are quite happy to take a call from somebody like you, from somebody that's willing to reach out of their comfort zone and say, I've got a new game. I want to come to Las Vegas. I don't have a team. I don't have a league. I don't know anybody there, but I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to come there. There's something about that really speaks to the human condition, to that individual. They want you to be successful. If you're willing to do that, they want you to succeed. So take us into your mindset on that. Take us into your mindset. You've got no league, no players. You don't know anyone out there. what are you thinking of at this point? Are you afraid of failing? Are you afraid of looking like an idiot? What's your wife saying at this point? What's the general mindset? Because again, I think our listeners want to know, what is somebody, that's really in the game, what are they thinking at the time they're doing? And I think a lot of times they think that they're fearless. And I would argue that, no, there's a lot of trepidation and fear, but you're just willing to get beyond it, whatever it takes. What was going on in your mind then?
Two ways I kind of live my life. And first of all, thank you for all that. Number one, make friends with your fear.
Yeah.
Follow the fear, as
Yep.
they say in improv. And number two, and this is how I actually got my wife, state your intentions.
Absolutely. Yep.
When I first got my wife on our first date, she thought we were just going to go network because I invited her to a film of mine that was premiering. And she goes, okay, well, should I meet you there? I go, no, this is a date. We're going out on a date now.
I love it.
So you have to actually state your intentions. There's a fine line between egotism and belief in yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I try very hard not to be a braggart or try to think I'm better than anybody else. I find the one thing that I know I'm fully confident in, and stay humble, but stay hungry.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, it sounds like you've got a spouse that supports you in your efforts. I know that, in a lot of cases, either the husband or the wife are, out of whatever fear, uncertainty, doubt that they're going through, are not necessarily supportive. I've got friends that God forbid, they even utter those words that I'm going to start a company or I'm going to do something different or I'm going to start taking guitar lessons and, put a band together. Their spouses fall apart. I mean, so it sounds like you had a lot of love and support on that end.
I do, and it's also, I've heard a lot of also in the past motivational speakers say stuff, and I agree with most of it, which is like, you got to go for it. You got to drop everything in the world, and if you do that, that's great. I've always taken a more practical approach, whereas, listen, I need to cover my responsibilities in this partnership.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And at the same time, make time for that dream. And a lot of people will fail, which is fine.
Yeah.
If they just drop everything and leave and go. And they've been very successful, and some have actually failed. But it comes down to an understanding and a respect for whoever's in this partnership with you.
Yeah.
And when Helena, that's her name, Helena, saw that I really wanted this badly, and she's actually been through the history. I call her the Flaws, the First Lady of Zoneball.
Everybody deserves a First Lady. That's great.
First Lady of Zoneball, the Flaws.
I love it.
She saw the passion that I had for this. She knew how much this meant to me because my father passed away from Alzheimer's about a few years ago.
And
he was the one who was my idol, and he built the Zoneball goal with me. So she knew how much I was invested in this, and she was like, go and show them who you are, and just make it happen.
That's amazing.
So every day on the phone, I called her 3 or 4 times a day, and to have that, that belief, to have that trust, to have that,
there's nothing like it. You feel like you could literally run through any wall, whatever you have to do. When you have that kind of support from your spouse, there's no greater feeling in the world. None.
Right, and it's good to have also it's good to have that understanding that something, I'm going to take care of what I need to take care of financially wherever I can, but then it's also like it's a calculated shot, it's a calculated risk.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go, I'm going to make this happen. If it doesn't, achieve the desired results, okay, take a little step back, go out, make some more money, come back, try again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I approach it. That's my approach. Other people have different approaches, but I think this is all about finding out what's best for you.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think a lot of people, they've got a negative feedback loop that really that's constantly on repeat, and they're psyching themselves out of any opportunity because they do feel like it's all in, it's all or nothing. Yeah. I got to do this. I got one shot at this. I got to make it happen. Look, in the third quarter, I would contend that, you don't have a whole lot of time. So, you better start taking your shot now. How many more Christmases do we have at this age? Mm-hmm. So you better start taking your shot now. But I think they feel honestly like, I got to go all in. I got to take all the chips. I got to put it all on red, all on black, whatever the case may be. And that's just not the case. You can actually, and I think that holds a lot of people back. You can actually take concerted, clear steps toward your goals, whatever they may be.
Use your career GPS.
Yeah.
You don't know how you're going to get there unless you have a destination. and you may take a wrong turn somewhere, but that GPS is going to correct you.
Mm-hmm.
So don't you are listen. You are going to fail. It's okay.
Yeah.
So take what you learned from that and then go forward. And don't worry about it so much, because if you worry about it, you're projecting and you're creating all these negative scenarios. How about you use that visualization to create positive scenarios?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There are so many people that are in the sales industry that, they're using positive visualizations. They're doing all kinds of things to increase sales, to do, whatever performance they need to achieve in their job. And yet they fail to actually turn that high power perception and use those visualizations on themselves.
Yeah.
And they do it for every other part of their lives. And they say, yeah, well, that's different. Well, no, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I really don't think it is. I think it's the same thing. I said, you either visualize yourself moving forward, achieving that goal, doing what you set out to do, or you remain stuck. And I think that's where, a lot of people are, especially those in, the 50, 60, 70-year-old demographic.
There's a lot of bitter people in this demographic. Some of it, is completely understandable because they feel like they got passed over. But no matter what you do, and you're right, that clock is definitely ticking, and that's also another motivator. And you find yourself saying, just like you said, if not now, when?
Yeah.
You really have to give it that shot.
Absolutely. You know why? Because you wind up getting to an age where you're not looking back and reminiscing. You're actually talking about the other R word, regret.
Yeah.
You look back with regret. And I got to tell you, my mother-in-law is at one of those Maris Grove facilities. It's like a cruise ship on land. And it's fantastic. I mean, they have everything. They have dining halls, and they have restaurants, and they've got a hair salon and gyms and pools and tennis courts, everything all indoors. You don't have to go anywhere. It could be 3 feet of snow on the ground, and they're totally good to go. However, when I walk around that place and I talk to some of these people, and I ask them, hey, you're at a certain age in your life now where you're winding down. You're 88, you're 92, you're 93. What do you think about the life that you lived? And you would be amazed. No, I don't think you would be amazed that the majority actually start off with, well, I wish I could have done things that I wish I would have. And so there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda. And it's very few and far between that actually start off with, oh, it's been an amazing ride. You know what? If I died tonight, I would be a happy human being to have lived this life that I've lived. I just don't hear it all that much. And I don't know what to do. And I really hope that this show helps those that really don't want to be at that point when they're 88, because I can't imagine anything sucking more than being 88 years old and knowing in your heart of hearts, I am too old to do anything about it now. At 58, no way. At 68, no way. Even 70, no way. But at 88, I'm sorry. You're not starting a new business. You're not joining a band. You're not doing any of that. You're just riding out the clock, unfortunately.
I think a lot of people are going to be listening also, and they're going to try to rationalize, when you say stuff like that, and we're both saying some really positive stuff, to themselves they're probably thinking, well, okay, they're saying that. They're just saying that, and they have to say that, and they don't understand what my situation is. Mm-hmm. I'm a person who completely understands that situation. I am a person who is not pie in the sky. Let's just the universe will show me the way. No, it's like I'm more practical, but in the sense of if I keep staying positive and kind of get those negative thoughts out of my head, I know things are going to happen only because I am getting proactive to make them happen.
That's right. Even if they're not exactly what you set out to do, oftentimes it's not the case. What you set out to do and what it ultimately winds up evolving into or becoming are different things. Maybe not dramatically different, but it's not exactly what and you have to allow for that. I think a lot of people, they're so rigid when they come out and they're going to do something. They stay so focused, so hard. They're afraid to pivot or just alter or move or adjust. And look, in life, you're going to have to pivot, move, alter, and adjust. It's just that, it's that simple.
If I just stood there and saw the Moxie Games on television and said to myself, I can't get Zoneball out there. That's a stupid idea.
Right.
I still would have. I wouldn't be talking to you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Steve. And that's what I love. Again, that's that core textbook Strangio, style is just pick up the phone. Knock on the door. I don't care if you're a real estate agent or what have you. Pick up the phone, knock on the door. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Can you take us into the mindset of what you think these people go through when they don't do that, or they're afraid to do that? What are they afraid of? What do you think?
Well, like the ongoing, thought, which is failure, being made fun of, being embarrassed.
And did you, being an inventor, did you have any of those thoughts?
Let's see. I can't say that I did. I just kind of followed the muse.
Yeah. Yep.
It just felt like you have one of those things where it's like, I mean, every creative person I've ever spoken to is like, I just have to do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a choice, right? It's almost like I've been chosen to do this. I have to do this.
I have to. And, some people see it as like, divine. Some people see it as just inspirational. I just see it as, listen, this is in my brain and I want to make it happen. I want to make it a reality so I can take a look at it.
Yeah.
And, I've written plays and I've written, movies and all sorts of other stuff. And it started with just an idea in my head, and I just wanted to get it outside of my head so I could take a look at it and then keep playing with it.
Yeah, examine it, look at it, adjust, shift or whatever you have to do and go back at it. But I think that's the part that really, I don't know, when they get that first shot of rejection and it's heavy and they put themselves out there and they have their, they literally put their heart and soul into this, whether it's a business, whether it's a song that they've written or a book or an article or anything, they put it out there. And that long face of I don't know what this is, or I don't really like it, it's crushing. I mean, and sometimes those defeats are just ones that they never come back from.
Well, as we get older, we no longer care.
Yeah. Well, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. You know what, Steve? We shouldn't care. And I always like to say, and my buddy Jules Falcone came up with this. I'm not going to take his words, but, he's taking the reverse gear out of the transmission. You hit a certain age, it's like, man, I don't back up anymore. I'm just moving forward. I just got to get to where I'm going. And, that's something where you're absolutely right.
Yeah, any creative outlet, anything that you do creative, there is going to be a certain segment of that population who doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it and they're vocal about it, good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You can say whatever you need to say, and I will listen. Some I may agree with, some I may not. But something, you had a difference of opinion. And no matter how you came at me with that difference of opinion, I'm just going to listen and go, okay, maybe I'll argue, maybe I won't, but this is what I did. And then that's all there is.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be afraid to put it out there. I'm sure there are people, some people may look at Zoneball and say, well, I don't like that sport. And I'll be like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't mean anything. Okay. Right. Yeah. Means absolutely nothing.
I got 17 other sports I could show you.
Yeah, exactly. So getting back to Zoneball, when I look at that, Steve, at first I had buddies. I didn't play soccer, and I know you did, and I know your dad was a pro. My buddies played soccer. I didn't, but it reminded me of what's the game that they would play kind of warming up? It was two words. Keep away. Keep away. Is that it?
Keep away. That's what you just said right there is another example of how I learned from something I created.
Okay.
I'd never heard someone compare it to keep away. I've heard people compare it to like basketball with a goal in the center.
Yeah. But again, my very uneducated notion. I'm not a soccer player, so I would see something or hear something and I say, "Oh, is that what that is?" So that would be my interpretation. Not being somebody from the sports world, I'm from the music world, but not the sports world. So that would be my interpretation of it.
Okay, that's fine too.
Is it inaccurate? Is there anything that's an overlap there or not?
Well, I think in keep away, it's more like, you're trying to hold on to the ball. This one, we're trying to pass it around and take a shot on goal.
Okay.
And the sport basically, I came up with general ideas for the rules, and the more we played it, the more the sport taught me how it should be played. Dribbling was really not part of the sport when I first started it. It was more of a catch and throw type of game. But then people wanted to move, and I saw somebody pat it forward, and I thought, well, okay, why don't we just dribble it to move it forward as a game dynamic, or dribble it? And then I said, I don't want to be basketball as much as I respect the sport, but double dribbling is not in basketball. Let's make double dribbling allowed. However, the ball is passed and moved forward. So then the sport taught me how to play.
Yeah.
The game. And that's what happens. Start it in a general, vague idea, and then keep playing it and keep playing it.
Once again, to my point earlier, what we just talked about, where you start off and where it evolves to are oftentimes, while similar, kind of different. And in this case, that's true. You're evolving. You're looking at the sport as to what it could be. How do we improve upon it? To me, it actually seems like a great fit for a social sports league. That's one thing that when I looked at the game, I saw some of the video online and I said, man, oh man, that to me seems like a perfect fit for a social sports league to have that game. I mean, they've got ridiculous games like cornhole and stuff like that. And I thought this is so much more mature, I think, and a fun, more engaging sport that really gets the heart beating, gets, that camaraderie that it just seems to be a perfect match. What are your thoughts on that?
I would love to make this a social sport. It was created as a sport that many people can play. That's why men and women can play at the same time.
Yeah.
That's why it's a non-contact sport. That's why it's a game that's easy to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And also it starts with variation. So we have the dribble version, we have the throw and catch version. I want to see a wheelchair version.
That's fascinating. Athletes. You know what? That is, look, for as long as I can remember, I've had a fear. Being a drummer, professional drummer my whole life, touring musician, I've had a fear of being, it's obviously irrational, but I had a fear of being in a wheelchair for my whole life. And then in 2011, I got hit by a car as a pedestrian walking across the street in Las Vegas. Oh, wow. And subsequently found myself in a wheelchair for a year, nursing 64 fractures, subdural hematoma, bleeding on the brain, orbital sockets crushed, partially blind. It was horrific. And suddenly I'm in this wheelchair and I'm thinking, this isn't so bad. And I'm thinking, if I got jammed up from the waist down, now neck down, that's a different story. But waist down, I was like, this is kind of doable. And it was really strange because I never really, look, Steve, I'll just tell you this. Jill and I, my wife Jill, we would go to dinner and I was so freaked out about this. Being a drummer, you need all your limbs. Every one of them's got to work, and Rick Allen's made it work phenomenally with just 3, but you really need 4. And if I were on the opposing side of somebody sitting in a wheelchair, I would make Jill switch seats with me. It was in my psyche that much. And then when I spent the year in the wheelchair, I was like, man, this is cool in the gang. You can make an adjustment here. And there's a lot of studies and a lot of focus groups done over the years where people that have been in horrible accidents that wound up being that way actually did, after a period of dipping, their mental well-being dipped and all of that. But after a while it came back. And, that was something that I found that was interesting when I looked at this sport. I even thought that as well, that it could be a wheelchair sport.
I mean, I've been following wheelchair athletes for a very long time. I actually played against a wheelchair athlete named Douglas King, and there's a video of it on my YouTube channel. And he goes, "Steve, get in the wheelchair and play." And he just, he beat me big time.
Oh yeah,
he was
absolutely.
He was so good, and that was great to learn, how to do it, because it gave me a literal different perspective.
Yeah.
And I've seen wheelchair basketball, I've seen wheelchair rugby and football and stuff like that. And I wanted to create something that ebbs and flows, just in Zoneball, when the defense gets the ball, they have to take it back to the outside line. So there's constant motion.
Yeah.
And that would be perfect for wheelchair athletes.
Without question. See, let me ask you, is Zoneball funded?
Well, right now, I'm currently looking for business partners.
Okay.
To help make that happen. I mean, it's all about finding the right people who have done this. You mentioned the social sports leagues in the past.
Yeah.
I've spoken to several sports leagues, and they say, well, we don't know what Zoneball is. And I go, well, it's this. And they go, well, who's playing it? So that conversation kind of devolves into nowhere. So I'm looking to meet the right business people who understand how to take something new, or even how to take something that is marketable. I mean, I've already proven that because it's been on ESPN too, on 2 different shows.
Yeah.
I know what I know. And you get to a point, too, where it's like, I don't want to fake knowing what I don't know. And some people may say, well, go ahead, give it a shot, just do it, you'll learn along the way. And I did say that previously myself. But there are certain things when you get to a point where I want to meet people who know what they're doing in the sense of marketing, negotiation, branding. Because it's it's one brand new sport of many that I have. So am I funded right now? No, but it's I'm funded in the sense of I have all of this stuff that I've done in the past that is proven.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have the sport. The sport is my currency right now.
Without question. So the next question for you is are you looking to raise capital from investors or actually find a partner, or maybe both?
Even if I did raise capital, I would still need a business partner or an agency to help me spend it the right way.
Okay.
So I'm not really looking for capital at the moment, but I am looking for the right agency, the right management company, even a sports agent who would know what to do with it or know how to approach the right people. Because, I could get a sponsor, sure, But then when you get that sponsor, who is going to help me spend that the correct way? That's why people always say to me, Steve, go on Shark Tank. Go on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go on Shark Tank without a business person by my side.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say you're more the creative type? You're the visionary creative type, but maybe not necessarily day-to-day operations, negotiating, finance, things like that. That might not be in your wheelhouse.
I'm the idea man. Yeah, I'm the
exactly.
guy who comes up. I'm the guy who's going to constantly create new sports or come up with new ideas, and then I need to pass it off to somebody who's going to implement those ideas. And to me, that just sounds prudent.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. Listen, if you're self-aware enough to know that those are shortcomings of what your personality is and is not, you have to respond and you have to listen to your heart and gut and say, listen, in your head and say, that's not what I'm good at. So
there's a lot of successful people out there that do that. I always quote Kevin Smith, who is, a Jersey guy too, and he surrounds himself with the right people.
Absolutely.
To take care of it.
Yeah,
you do that. When I was younger, I used to write interactive movies for a company called Interfilm, and there was a guy who was in charge, and he was the person who invented interactive films, but he surrounded himself with all of his business partners, so he could just be himself. So what I'm looking for right now is to surround myself with those business people.
All right, so let's unpack this in a different way. Let's look at it from the standpoint of the audience or our listeners and what they may be thinking about and what they may be going through. They may be the exact same way saying, look, I'm the idea guy or gal, but you know what? Operationally, I'm not going to be able to get this over the goal line. And even if I do, it won't be as successful as it could be otherwise. So if we unpack it from the standpoint of the listener, somebody that's 40, 50, 60, even 70, that's got an idea, they are the idea guy or gal, but they don't have that. We have to look inward, right? Backwards to ourselves because we don't have that person just yet. And I think a lot of times that's the wall that someone would hit. They have the product. They've gotten it through the prototype standpoint. They've gotten it into the marketplace. They've gotten a little bit of exposure. They don't find that other piece. And then days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. And next thing you know, 3 years have gone by and they've done nothing with it. So if we back this up and I look at you, writer, producer, I've seen some of the stuff on YouTube. I know that you're definitely skilled in front and behind the camera.
Thanks.
How did I find you?
I found you.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
How did you find me?
I saw your ad.
Exactly. Steve, have you ever produced an ad for Zoneball as it relates to finding a partner? Not an investor.
I have, but it hasn't been seen in as many things as it should be. I mean, there was the Zoneball sport commercial that was on ESPN too, and that led people to my website.
Yeah. Well, guess what? This is actionable item. This is takeaway number one right here. If I were you, I would make a video and I would run an ad on Facebook.
Yeah.
Game Inventor seeks partner. Then make another video, second video with slightly different language, a different maybe heading, different, something else seeks partner, just to see if you're testing and measuring and seeing which messaging is working. For $25-$30 an ad, you can find out. And look, I would drill down and I would not look for a partner that's outside of your local area. I just would not. I think that would be a waste of time to find a guy in LA that was going to be your partner. I just don't know that that would have the same impact as somebody that was nearby. You could meet up, you could touch the product, play the product, get together, present to these leagues. And by the way, I'm going to go back for takeaway number 2. I think there's something in these social sports leagues. I think there's something there for sure. But staying on this, stay local. When you get into Facebook ads, I'm not sure if you've created any recently, but you can really, really drill down and make them super targeted, hyper local, exact match, right down to political preference, age, level of education, you name it. So there's somebody out there right now that is 40, 50, 60, 70 years old saying, you know what? I am tired of being the glue that holds my company together. I've got more to give. I've got more in my heart that I just feel constrained. I can't. It's just like, I got to get out of this. Right message, right place, right ears, and you've got yourself a partner. And I would do that. I would make a very short 30-second ad. And I would just, like I found you, like you found me, that's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. And you know what? You don't have to spend a lot of money. Look, you are so far ahead, more so than most, because you have the production experience.
Yeah.
You could turn the camera on yourself. You could run these clips. I'm sure you run either Premiere or Final Cut or something like that for editing software. So you don't have to pay to do that, right?
I actually use iMovie, believe it or not.
Even better, even better.
Yeah.
So that's something our listeners, iMovie is free. Okay, you don't have to pay a dime. So right now, we're looking at getting you down the path to finding your partner, the ideal partner, and you're going to spend literally less than $100, and you're going to be able to run 3 to 4 ads to get some data points. Look, I think for every $25, you're probably reaching somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 3,000 people. Yep. Depending on how well that ad performs. If you have 10,000 people that you've reached with a message, I think you could start to craft a tighter message on that first $75 to $100, go into the next $100. Tighten up the message. Eventually, you're going to find that person. Because I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't advertise this in a like Amusement Today, or I think it used to be called Amusement Business, but now it's called Amusement Today. I wouldn't put a biz op ad in the paper or anything like that. I would absolutely use Facebook. The fastest growing demo is our demo. They're an older. So the people are there. The eyeballs are there. The attention is there. And right now, it's still incredibly cheap to advertise on Facebook. It really is. So
no, I agree with you. I mean, it's all about visual. It's all about getting to the point. I've been doing stuff on LinkedIn as of late. And
it's another great platform. Yep.
Yeah.
I run the same ad. I create the same ad, and I run it on that platform as well.
It's gotten more Facebook-ish in a way.
It has.
When it comes to posting things, which is, I think is better, more functionality that way.
Yeah.
Also doing, you're my first podcast interview for this specific campaign that I'm doing. So I want to talk to people. And then since I have this, understanding of podcasts and interviews, and I've done stuff in the past, you don't know. Nobody knows until you tell them exactly what you are looking for.
That's right. But Steve, that's what I'm saying to you. You understand, as a writer and a producer, you understand how to craft a message that's absolutely going to speak that right message to the right set of ears at the right time, and you've got your partner. And you have the ability to do that. And I would love to see you come back. And look, I just don't want this to be a one and done here. You know what I mean? Like, we had one conversation, and Steve Strangio was somebody we had on the show a couple of years ago. I'd like for you to come back, literally, and stop by the Facebook page every month or two and say, hey, Doug, just checking in. And I would like for other people where your story resonates with them, I would like for them to be able to go back and ask you a question.
I'd be so down.
Yeah, we'll link up your contact later, in the show notes and all that. So the second takeaway that I would think here would be a really, really big play here, and it might be your biggest play. If you have the chutzpah to get on a plane and go to Vegas, think about the sheer terror that would strike in the hearts of most human beings, right? I'm going to Vegas. I don't know anybody. I have no team. I have no league. I'm going to look like the biggest idiot at these games, but yet I'm doing it, and you did it. Why? If you just Google, what is the phrase? What are they called? Social sports again? I already forgot already.
It's just social sports. Yeah.
Okay.
They call it social sports leagues.
So type social sports leagues near me. I guarantee there'll be dozens of them that show up. And you know what? I would run a video. I'd make another video, or I'd just go out there. They can't be far. Listen, Steve, if they have cornhole, seriously, they have cornhole. Just the name, enough is enough to make you laugh. And by the way, these leagues, they're not regulated in any way, are they? I don't know anything about them.
I did some research on them. I mean, obviously, they try to keep some regulations in there, but it's mainly just let's go out and have some fun and move around.
Okay, so there's really no sanctions of these sports or regulatory body or governing body, anything like that?
I think there's the SSIA, but they're all basically mainly local independent
That's
leagues.
What I would think, exactly.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you just go out to the local guy or gal that's running that league and say, look, I just want you to try it. If you hate it, we won't revisit it again. You'll never have to look at it again. But in other words, this is where I'm having a bit of a disconnect, because somebody with your I don't want to say it here, but man, you know what I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
For you to go out there and do that, that's the hardest part. And I would think that sometimes what's right under our nose is something that we oftentimes overlook. You know the old saying, even Jesus didn't make it in his own hometown. So, why not go to a half a dozen of these local ones? Probably within an hour's drive, you might have at least 3, 4, or 5 in an hour's drive.
Well, I should tell you that the Boys and Girls Clubs of America here, the local chapter here in Clifton, they want to start playing Zoneball.
Why aren't they playing it?
They played one. They played one game, and then we had to take a break because there was some reorganization going on. But I recently spoke to the guy in charge. He's like, we're going to get you back, because I actually volunteered my time. I went through the whole process and went through a background check and the whole deal. So I am an official volunteer for the Boys and Girls Clubs. So we're going to start there, you know.
I love it.
And then,
I love it.
Yeah, see where it goes. I mean, that could explode nationally within
Absolutely.
a heartbeat.
That's what I'm thinking. And you know what? At that point, listen, you could grab a partner. I think you're going to find your partner on Facebook. If you get into these social sports leagues, I think that's your home run. I think that's your play, because that's the place that's literally going to expose it to people all over the country. And after that, you head over to across the pond. I mean, this thing could really start to blow up. But if you get into those leagues where these people are having fun, let's back up to the earlier part of our conversation.
Okay.
What did we talk about before with the younger generation? They're literally locked on their phones and all that. I would say that right now, if there was ever a time that something like social sports leagues would absolutely flourish and really benefit from a sport like Zoneball, it's right now. It's right now. Because these millennials have literally no idea how to interact outside of a text message.
I hear you.
I think it's a broad generalization, maybe not all of them, so let's not get a lot of hate mail and all that stuff. But for the most part, these millennials literally, I think, would gravitate to something like this where it's just fun. Because think about it. We grew up playing kick the can, right?
Yeah.
We were doing all kinds of things like that. They weren't.
Yeah.
They were on their phones. They were inside playing video games. So I think that's a part where they, I think, would really have an opportunity to connect. Have you ever asked a millennial, and I've got 3 kids, so I have 3 daughters, and you ask them about dating and things like that, and they'll say, well, you know, I don't know, that's kind of awkward. And I said, I don't know, in my day, you just walked up to somebody and said, listen, I think you're attractive, you know, I don't know if this is a great rap or not, but I think you're attractive. You might be a nice person. You know, let's go have a coffee or a beer or whatever. And, you know, what's the worst they're going to say? No. And that idea alone is enough to send them scurrying. So something like Zoneball, a game like that where they're getting together, it's the camaraderie. It's not about the competition, I don't think. I think it's about the camaraderie. If they're getting together, you know what? I just think it's a perfect time. And I would make that part of my pitch to these local sports leagues.
Even singles leagues.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I think 2 things here, Steve. There's no reason that with the timing of where we are and what we're talking about on the show today, that literally by this time next year, you wouldn't be on the show. And I hope you're back on the show way before then. But I don't think that within 6 months, by the spring of next year, that you shouldn't be at least in a couple of dozen, maybe 3 dozen leagues across the nation.
Well, I appreciate that, but it also depends on me, you know, getting out there and doing it too. I mean, it all comes down to that. I mean, aside from doing this, I would love to do a speaking tour, you know, to be not a lecturer, but more of a speaker, a public speaker, because I actually did that when I was in Las Vegas. They gave me 20 minutes, and I was on stage, and I just told the story of Zoneball, and it felt right because I used my stand-up comedy stuff and my public speaking. I also host trivia shows, so I'm not afraid to be in front of a crowd.
But wait a second, but which is it? But what do you want more? Do you want to be a speaker, or do you want to be the inventor of Zoneball?
I want the whole thing. I want, you know, to use everything that I know how to do to advance that one sport, Zoneball, but then let people know that Zoneball really is just the beginning, because I have so many other sports. I currently have 3 other sports out there in the world, and I have about 20 to 25 more on the drawing board.
Look, I love the fire. I love the enthusiasm. You are pumped, man. Steve, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? If you're comfortable sharing with it, you can share, but if you're not comfortable...
I got no problem. I'm 55.
I love it, man. Listen, Steve, you've got more fire in your belly than most 25-year-olds do, and you're out there, but maybe what I'm seeing a little bit is that I would get zeroed in on putting this thing in as many leagues as I possibly can, because at that point, you're going to be able to start going out and speaking about, listen, we started out with 3 leagues. We are now in 36 leagues across the nation. That is a massive narrative right there. To get behind that, people will get behind that. And I even think that you could probably do that without the partner. I really do.
Okay.
If you're willing to show up in Vegas, and that's what's got me about this. That's the hardest part. I mean, I know so many people that have talked a big game and didn't do it. And trust me, I know what it's like, because I moved a family to Las Vegas to bring the show Fantastic Voyage from Atlantic City. I woke up one day after 7 years and I said, "Hun, this is not the entertainment capital of the world. We need to move to Las Vegas." Literally, Steve, I kid you not, literally in 6 months, we were living in Las Vegas.
Well, that's impressive.
And we stayed there 5 years. And I moved the kids, everybody, the whole bit, the band, the show, everybody. It was insanity. So I understand when you take that risk and you go out there and do that. I think it's right in front of you here. And I would love to see you get a dozen or more of these things under your belt, because I think at that point when people are playing this, you can tell people until you're blue in the face. It's when other people are getting online and they're sharing their videos and they're sharing it on TikTok and they're sharing it on Snapchat and they're sharing it on all the other social platforms about them playing it. That's when it starts to take off. And that's when those directors and those heads of those leagues start calling you and saying, how do I get Zoneball in my league? We're getting asked for it. So
I've seen, sorry for interrupting, but I've seen some of those videos already from a lot of the high school or grade school teachers who have bought the sport. They actually put up some YouTube videos, and I've seen some of the videos, and the feeling is amazing.
Absolutely.
Even out in the UK, because CB Active Sports Limited, my friend Conrad out there, he contacted me, through Facebook, and said he wanted to play Zoneball. We did a campaign to raise money to get a Zoneball goal out there, and now it's being played by underprivileged kids.
Steve, that's amazing.
An amazing thing. And now the next target is Africa. There's a company, Sports Aid Network, and it's going to be Lugazi community. They want to start playing Zoneball as well. So it's amazing knowing that something that I created is being used in a beneficial way to keep kids off the streets, get them playing, get them active, and that's amazing.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's one side of it, but also the social aspect of it is really something. When the younger generations are having difficulty, going on dates and just doing normal things that we grew up, because we didn't have any other distraction. There was nothing else to do but to do that.
Right.
And I think there's that side. There's so many positive sides of this, and it's not just a sport. It's not just an activity. There's so much more in terms of the social component of this that I think it's really huge. But I do really think that it starts in your backyard. I think if you can get one or two or three of these, look, I'll make you a deal.
Go.
I'll make you a deal.
Okay.
If you promise to reach out to everybody near you, and ask them if you can come out and show them, because if you're willing to fly to Vegas, you're willing to go down the street to do a demonstration and have some kids play or do whatever. If you're willing to reach out to them, I will share this interview with every single one of the people near me and beyond, as many as I can find, and I will share that with them and ask them if they will have you come out and demonstrate the game.
I will find a way to make that happen.
Because I think, Steve, I really think this could take off. And if you have other people, that's the key. Steve Strangio could talk to he's blue in the face about how great Zoneball is, but the moment you have a 23 or 25 or 28-year-old or 30 or 40, I don't care, 15-year-old, when they're sharing that on TikTok and Snapchat and any other platform, that's when it starts to catch a gear. It really does.
Social media. That's why it's like now is the perfect time in the history of everything to introduce something new, because it can go out there in a heartbeat.
Without question. I'm fired up, man. Steve, I am really excited for what you're going to be doing here. I'm excited that you've come on the show today. You've shared this with your story with everybody. You've definitely shown our listeners. It's never too late, right? It's never too late.
I appreciate that, and thanks for the opportunity. It's good to have programs like yours to give people like me a chance to tell their story.
Absolutely, Steve. So I hope you'll stop by the Facebook page once in a while. Just check in. Let us know you've got Zoneball and maybe 20 new leagues. I would love to see that. I am going to share this with as many people in leagues as I possibly can. We're going to stay engaged with you, right? I want to go along on this journey with you. We're not going to just have this podcast and then we're going to be, a distant memory. So, Steve, we're going to be checking in. Like, you may get a phone call, in the middle of the day. I might have some other guest on the show, and we may call you, and I may say, wait a second, you're talking about inventing something? I got a guy who's an inventor. He's done it. He's doing it. And we may give you a call and just bring you right back on the show.
I understand that. I got a guy. I'll be your guy.
Yeah, exactly. You got a guy. I got a guy. Like Vic, what's his name? Vic DiBetto or what? I forget his name.
DiBetto, yeah.
DiBetto, yeah. He's hysterical. He's hysterical. Hey, Steve, before I let you go, where can listeners find out more about you, Zoneball, possible partnerships, investment opportunities?
So let's talk about the Zoneball website. It is Zoneball Sport. So Zone is spelled like it always is, Z-O-N-E. Zoneballsport, the singular.com. So go there, zoneballsport.com, and if you want to find out more about me, it's SteveStrangioProductions.com. Now, I always hear, how do you spell your last name, Steve? So it's S-T-R-A-N-G-I-O. So SteveStrangioProductions.com, and you get to see all the stuff I'm doing for Roku and other streaming platforms. And if you want to go to Steve's Trivia, the link will be on there as well. But just search for Steve's Trivia on your podcast app, and I'm doing lots of really cool trivia games there as well. I can't stop inventing games.
I love it. But Steve, I want this one game, but I want Zoneball big. I want Zoneball. I want somebody to come to me and say, oh my God, I just got back. I played Zoneball. Do you remember when the axe throwing started to really take off about 1.5 years, 2 years ago?
Just talking about that with my wife. I'm like, babe, we got to go and throw some axes.
Okay, so guess what? I can't wait till somebody says to me, hey, we got to go play Zoneball. I'm telling you right now, when that happens, and I'm telling you, Steve, if you go local, hyper local, you're going to find your partner and you're going to start this fire. This fire starts from one league. One league takes it, then the next league takes it, and the next league takes it, and it's going to blow up. So look, we want our listeners to stay engaged as well. If you're listening right now and you have a question for Steve or me, head over to our Facebook page at Third Quarter Gut Check. Leave us a message. Ask Steve anything, right? Steve, will you stop by and answer a question once in a while?
Ask me anything.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, this is all good stuff, man. That's it for this episode. If Steve's story resonated with you, comment below. Head over to our Facebook page, Third Quarter Gut Check. If you know anybody in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s that would appreciate the show, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Doug Taylor. And remember, you guys are battle-tested and life-approved. And you surely don't need anyone's permission to start living the lives you were born to live.
The Third Quarter Gut Check is sponsored by Trench University. Battle-tested, life-approved. To be a guest on the show, call 215-315-3148. That's 215-315-3148. Or send us an email to thirdquartergutcheck@gmail.com. That's 3RD quartergutcheck@gmail.com.